My name is Jerm. This is Jerm Warfare, the battle of ideas. Yes, but you do look a little bit dark. And as you just said, Mike, before I hit record button, it goes with your personality.
Thank you.
I want to ask about the UK column event. It's now less than, 2 months away, more or less 2 months away. We haven't spoken about it in months. And I think this is a great time to talk about it.
Quite agree. Well done. And it is less than 2 months away.
You began by saying you were going to ask something and then you didn't ask anything.
You're talking to me or Charles?
You.
That's what I was going to ask.
What? Just whether you got the date right?
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about it. I mean, it's very exciting. It's the 20th anniversary. 2 weeks ago, Mike, you were on my podcast when Charles was away, and we chatted about the history of UK column. And now it's the 20th anniversary. It's a pretty awesome date. 20 years. That is. I mean, I think a lot of mainstream media can't even last 20 years. I mean, that says something.
Well, the key thing is we got to last another 20, and of course, lots of things are ganging up against us at the moment, and the question is whether anybody is going to be free to speak in 20 years' time.
So, yeah, we'll come back to that. I've got a great question about that freedom of speech topic.
Is it really a question?
Are we playing with words today? All right. Okay.
Why not? I mean, I thought this was called Banter, Jerm.
Well, okay, yes, let's banter, but let's first banter about the event. Before you ruin the surprise, I'm not going to say anything yet about whether or not I will be there, but let's talk about what to expect.
Okay. Well, I thought you might have been extending that with something more or a question.
It's open-ended, Charles.
Well, that's good. That is a relief. It is extremely exciting. I think you're right. There are two things going on because we've got back into hosting events over the last couple of years. So there's the event, and then there's the 20 years, and they're both significant, and obviously the one celebrates the other. But I think they do both deserve discussion, sort of in their own right, because I think the point about not just UK column, but anything lasting 20 years is quite significant, and I think also specifically with your comment about the mainstream, and I know that from the outside, people will think that they are seeing or witnessing something different, and Mike will be able to explain exactly why that is from a sort of a tech and sort of content capability point of view. But I think the way that I would see it is that what is remarkable is that what comes out of UK column now is, in principle, at least, exactly the same as where it started, and I think that is really unusual in a mainstream context. I think to be able to pick a particular publication or sort of video content creator and say that they're doing what they set out to do still after 20 years, I don't think that would be. I don't think you'd really be finding that, and so to have achieved that level of consistency of quality of output, but also the nature of what's being investigated and challenged. I think that's the really significant bit. But then again, that is of course set alongside the burgeoning censorship regime, and it's a completely fascinating battle to be part of. It is absolutely bizarre that that so many people still cannot really understand what's happening, and that the way that the backstory is told means that for a lot of people, censorship or the restriction of freedom of speech has been so aggressive that the justifications are swallowed by an awful lot of people. And so that is one of the things that changes. But no, I mean, on the event side, it was a really interesting one. We'd run events for the last couple of years. We'd also been out and gone to other outside events and spoken and really enjoyed taking part in that sort of being with people exercise. And it is always worth doing. It's fantastic. But I think we were quite right this year to take the decision to just concentrate on the one event that we were going to do, the 20th anniversary event, in order that we make it distinctly different from the events that we have been running over the past couple of years. And okay, people will have to decide for themselves whether they really think we've done that. But I think in the planning and the selection of speakers and the topics and the sorts of things we've got going on, I think that there is going to be an awful lot that is absolutely different from what we've done over the last couple of years. So that's the way I look at it in a nutshell version. I think there's lots more we can go on and talk about. But Mike, I don't know. I mean, your perspective is so different because you've been involved in so many different events over a much longer period of time. I mean, how do you see it?
This upcoming event, I think, is very much in the vein of or inspired by the alternative view conferences that Ian Crane used to run, which we were huge supporters of for years. And Brian, traditionally at those events, was, the opening speaker on the Saturday morning. Yeah, the first real proper presentation of the entire event was usually Brian, and that became a sort of meme. But the people, I understand that events like this that are effectively 2.5 days, 3, whatever it is, are significantly expensive, and for some people too expensive. I mean, we decided that for the 20th anniversary event, we were going to make it a full weekend event because we miss the vibe and the feeling the vibe is the best word to use for the type of event that Ian used to run. Quite a number of people did ask us to run a full weekend event because some of those people attended AV events back in the day. So it is very much a different thing to a one-day event. People for a one-day event, even if they're staying the evening before or the evening after, the event begins in the morning, it ends in the evening, and that's it. They've got a day. Whenever there's a whole weekend to get to know the other people that are at the event, it absolutely changes the entire feeling. So we're really looking forward to it from that point of view. I think just to add to what Charles was saying, something that we have missed from from the pre-COVID days was the real face-to-face physical contact with people, and because doing things on a live stream, it's not the same, even though the chat box is there. When you're presenting, unless you're sitting and just staring at what people are posting in comments in the chat box, there's still not that real connection. And so it has been good to get the live events done. And I suppose in the same vein, the magazine is the same because we want to have a much more tactile relationship with people than digital allows for. So I'm looking forward to it from that point of view. It is has been a lot of work to put this on, and we will certainly do these types of events again in the future if people want us to. So I don't think I've got anything else to say about the event itself at this point, but it's got to be good crack, and if anybody can get to it, there are a few tickets left, but they are going.
I opened the conversation by saying that mainstream media doesn't necessarily last 20 years. Of course, that is laughable. I'm referring to online because obviously physical newspapers like The Guardian and Observer and whatever have been around for, I think, even centuries, not even decades. But I'm obviously talking about the digital space, which is where we find ourselves in, which is interesting how you have now just juxtaposed that with the magazine, because UK column is largely, like 90%, pretty much entirely online now, isn't it? So having that physical aspect, like the magazine, does bring in some real world connectivity.
That's what I hope. Yes, real world as in not digital, and something that it is by far much more pleasant to, if you're going to read something, to read it in a physical form rather than trying to read it off a screen. But
do you think that do you think that's maybe not? I mean, I'm just now putting a span in the works, but is that not perhaps yearning for nostalgia? I mean, is that? Do you think there is still a need for that physicalness, or is it? We're just kind of hoping that things go back to how they were, kind of thinking. I'm in favor of the magazine. I'm just wondering if it is one of, it's like vinyls. It's a niche thing.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that, because in the last decade or so, vinyl has absolutely had a comeback, because people like that and they miss that, and there's something not there with digital. It's artificial in a certain way, and so they absolutely love the ritual of putting an LP on a turntable and putting the needle on and listening to the music. There's something much more engaging about that, but I mean, from the comment on the magazine, I think reading physical paper is, first of all, it's not quite so damaging on the eyes as reading off a screen, but there's something real about it, relatively speaking, compared to reading off a screen. I would absolutely encourage people to be, get back into the real world instead of this virtual nonsense that we're bombarded with all the time. But the other thing to say, Jerm, is there have been a number of people in the last couple of years, let's say, that have left our viewership because they have given us feedback like the UK column has changed. And I would say the common feature amongst the people that have decided not to be with us anymore is that they arrived with us in the COVID period, and then they thought that that's what the column was. But, the fact is we do have 20 years of history, and what, if anything, has changed, we've gone back to, in a certain sense, to the diversity of content that we had for the first 18 years, whatever it was, before, no, it can't have been 18 years, for the first 14 years before the COVID thing happened. Yeah, sorry. Last time we were talking about this, I completely got my numbers wrong as well. It is.
I'll just text you this.
Okay. I'll shut up now.
I did ask at the beginning, though, what to expect, and you kind of circumvented that, Charles. Is it a secret? Can we discuss general what
no, it's not
themes?
But
okay.
actually, yeah. Okay, but sorry, because I think, in fact, Mike, despite the ribbing, probably slightly unfairly we've given on numbers, I think that it was a really important point about the physical reading, physical interaction, and I would be interested to understand what it is. But when you read something off a screen, I think there are many elements of it that can never compare with reading from a magazine or book in hard form. One of those things is not, and I know it might sound silly because it's not as though you just want to get to the end, but it's not having any sense of how long what you're reading is. When you hold a book or a magazine, you can physically feel or see, you can flick through the pages, you can see how long it is, how far through the article or the book or the chapter or whatever that you are. And I think that does have some sort of a psychological effect on what it is that you are reading. And I would say it enhances what you're reading as compared with reading something digitally. And then there's the other issue of, I mean, you know, Mike, obviously you've already talked about it, but what you are looking at. And again, something like just the quality of the screen that you're looking at will make quite a difference as to quite simply how easy or difficult it is to read. And I know that I might be wrong. Did Amazon make that Kindle thing? Was it there?
Yes.
They
Yes.
made it. So I don't have one. I have seen those, and I still don't really understand how they work. It seems very clever because they're not.
It's actually it actually does work quite
backlit.
nicely, though. I mean, it's certainly easy on the
Yeah.
eyes, Charles.
Exactly. No, so that is absolutely, I would say, you know, if you are going to have to read something that's not in paper form, then that looks to me much better. It is cleverly done. As I said, I don't quite understand how it does work, but I'm sure there must be an effect in relation to the way in which you actually take something in through the eye, and I think that is really important. And gosh, exactly the same with the in-person bit. And my perspective, I think, from the events that I've been involved in, what I have really enjoyed, because I have sort of compared the days that we've run, is being able to see in between each talk the responses that people have to the particular speaker, and you know get that from being able to see everybody at the same time, and it is very, very powerful. It's absolutely amazing. But no, in terms of what we are putting on, first of all, yeah, you know, it's going over 3 days, so Friday afternoon, Saturday, and Sunday, and I think that just gives such a good opportunity for people not just to be seeing a really good array of speakers talking about a load of different things, many of which do pertain to what UK Column has been about for the last 20 years, but to be able to have those times in between, not just breaks during the day, but you know, we're making sure to give a decent length of time to a proper sit-down dinner on the Friday night and again on the Saturday night, and then to break up. You know, the format of our events to date has been quite formal in a sense, in that a speaker will get up and talk, and this time there'll be the incorporation of music. We're really pleased to have Mark Devlin coming, and he's going to be using music to sort of augment what he's going to be talking about. Jonathan Marshall, who people have become very familiar with, who works with horses and falcons, sadly, because it's indoors, won't be able to bring horses, but we have great sort of visual displays of the horses that he works with, and will be flying his falcons. And also we're going to have some music from him as well. And I think that's, you know, that is just a fantastic extra dimension. And then we've also got Jake Fern, who's going to be able to do just give a little bit of an insight into how he starts to create a piece of his artwork. I mean, I think specifically a portrait. We're actually yet to nail down exactly what he will be creating, but just to give the audience that sense of what that's about. And I think these things are so easily forgotten. The fact that, well, you know, I know we've talked about this a lot, but how significant and important creation is. The fact that people are physically creating that effect. And then that's the other thing with the, you know, we've just been talking about reading something off a digital screen. So much now that is created is it's synthetic in effect. It's a digital creation. It sort of almost like it doesn't really exist. And I think to go back to really celebrating what does exist in the company of other people is just a massive treat. And then the other thing that we mustn't overlook is the significance of holding the event in Plymouth. I have to say, I'd not been to Plymouth prior to becoming involved with UK Column, but it is an amazing place. And the views from over Plymouth Sound, from the Hoe, which is where we will be just sort of off the Hoe. I mean, it is completely spectacular. And okay, you could say a shadow of its former self or former glory in many respects. But I mean, namely a place that in a way isn't. But it's still, it just the sheer natural splendor of that bit of coast is just fantastic. And so to be able to go out in between times and just be in that environment is again massively beneficial, because I think it's very easy to just think about where you are in the immediate instance of the event itself, the confines of the space, and not really consider beyond that. But to have both bits, to have all the people, and then to be able to go out and see, Smeaton's Tower, which of course is in the backdrop of all the news programs and that incredible view. I think that is another dimension. I'm obviously hoping that everybody's going to be charging into the sea at least once a day for a good swim, half a mile at least. But we'll see how we go.
So I didn't know where Plymouth. I mean, I don't know anything about UK geography, so I had to look it up. And so it's at the southwest of the UK, and that particular part of the UK, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, has something to do with the Mayflower.
The steps are still there, Jerm. If you want to go and see the steps that they walked down to get onto the Mayflower, they're still there.
Which I believe went all the way to the US. I don't know that the history.
Well, that was the Pilgrim Fathers,
Okay, so there is some significance to the little town of Plymouth, isn't there? it has its own history that's special. Oh, is it a city, not a town?
Yeah, it's a city.
Okay, yeah. All right.
With a lot of history, but I will defer to Mike.
Well, I mean, I don't know all the history at all, but it was one of the major Royal Navy ports for centuries, and I don't know its older history, but Plymouth.
It looks beautiful.
Parts of it are beautiful. Parts of it are run down. Parts of it were knocked down by the council after the Second World War. In fact, one of the stories that Brian tells is that the council did more damage than Hitler did. And so, there are parts of it that are absolutely spectacular, and other parts not so much. It used to be a major shipbuilding city and a major heavy engineering city, but that's mostly gone, as most heavy engineering has gone everywhere. At other times, you would perhaps be a bit more positive about the fact that it's a major sort of defense-related place. But of course, at the moment, with bad intentions of the leadership of this country, maybe not so much. So, it's a lot going for it, but, it is on the edge of on the border between Devon and Cornwall. So you've got Dartmoor to the north, and you've got the whole of Cornwall to the west, and you've got Dartmouth and Torquay and so on, the so-called English Riviera to the east. So there's a ton of stuff to do and a ton of reasons to come here, aside from anything that the UK column might be doing.
And there will be people coming there from all over to the event.
And there's some people coming internationally as well. So, it's going to be a fun event. There's no question about that. But I mean, Charles didn't go through all the speakers, I noticed.
No, I didn't.
Come on, Charles.
No, well, all right, okay. I think that was actually not directed at me, but yes, I did not go through all the speakers, but there will be. I mean, there'll be some of the UK column stalwarts. Of course, Mike will be speaking, Brian will be speaking, Patrick Henningsen. We've got Alex Thompson coming over, and there'll be an incredible sort of strength, breadth, and depth. But then also, we are very pleased that we've got Kate Markland, who has an incredible story to tell, and has been interviewed by Brian relatively recently, and also Lucy Morgan Edwards, who we're very excited to be having as a speaker and also as a contributor to the forthcoming issue of the column as well. So we've got a real good mixture of very, very intelligent and articulate voices who I think will bring just a great sense of occasion to an event that is really special. The 20 years being in Plymouth, being all together, and for that period of time, and exactly as Mike pointed out earlier, if it's felt that this has been a good thing to have done, then we absolutely will think about more weekend, sort of full weekend events, because I think that's inevitably because people's behaviour was changed in 2020 and thereafter. A lot of things haven't really restarted. Are people sort of ready and willing to get back to where we were? I really hope so, but it has to. I suppose, don't know whether surprise is the right word, but I mean, an awful lot of things absolutely just died a death in 2020 and have never really been resurrected. And that is especially when it concerns an in-person event, gathering, whatever you call it. I think that's a huge tragedy. And I can't substantiate this, but I do rather feel that people are actively missing all of that, but just lack the impetus to get it going because everything was sort of ripped away. So I would hope that, again, this is for people who are motivated to do those sorts of things. This is a marker and something that they can draw inspiration from. But I think we definitely will for future events.
I think there's a beautiful irony in the fact that there is now a UK column magazine, because when you said 2020, I mean, a lot of the world changed in 2020, and part of that is the World Economic Forum's ambition to basically remove any use of paper. Everything must become digital and an app and whatever, right? And UK column is about the antidote to mainstream propaganda. And one of those is that we're running out of paper. We must save the environment. I mean, yeah, there's pollution, but a magazine is not going to destroy Earth. And in actual fact, there is always and has always been a desire to hold something physical in your hand that you can turn the page and just enjoy. And you can keep it. You can leave it on the coffee table and you can come back to it later. There is something special about that. And it's not what, Klaus Schwab and the UN, want us to do. And so I think it's a great middle finger to that kind of narrative.
Well, I think when we're being told that the only way to live is their way, then we should be doing the other thing. And so, real physical events is one way to be not conforming with what is desired. You see, the thing though is, they do suggest that people should be living more digital lives, but they're not stopping their physical events. They clearly feel that if they want to organize, that they need to get together in a physical place, and they clearly still enjoy their how do we describe them? How do we describe Davos? I mean, it is.
It's a globalist retreat.
Yeah, not sure that's quite strong enough. But
I think it's more seedy.
Anyway, we're not attempting to replicate that as such. But the physical contact is something that people missed since 2020, and I think it's something that we should all be viewing as an act of resistance.
Yeah,
the thing also. Sorry, Charles.
Okay, just very quickly, because we must not forget the absolutely absurd lengths and desperate measures that were reached in terms of pushing this. I mean, physical objects, paper, were said to be dangerous. I mean, it went that far. So as well as your carbon footprint and this, that, and the other, and it's so much more efficient to do digital. It was then, no, we can't do cash because you might die. If you touch that pound note, you might die. And even even sending stuff to a laboratory to prove that the virus was still there after 72 hours on a, and there was, I mean, I might be making some of this up, but so what? There were sort of things in the newspaper, things would be scored according to what they were made of, like how long the thing would last on any particular item. I mean, I can even think of people who told me that they had sprayed any post that came through the door. They had sprayed it with some sort of disinfectant. And the other classic was churches trying so desperately to forbid their reckless congregations from going anywhere near the place. There was this obsession with removing hymn books and prayer books from the churches, and I actually had a conversation with somebody in what was then my church, which ran along the lines of just running through the logic. A small rural church, seldom visited, even when there is a service. And you say, so hang on, are you saying that you think someone's going to come into the church, pick up a hymn book, probably lick it, put it back, and that the next person that comes in will go for exactly that same hymn book and again probably lick it, and that the intervening time, according to the Daily Mail, will not have exceeded the how long the virus can last on a hymn book? And it's only when you really it was obviously an utterly absurd conversation, but it was necessary because it had to be pushed to the point that there was no longer any way in which that could hold water. And of course, the result was a bit of an explosion. And yes, okay, we won't hide the hymn books away. But the sort of the veil of fear that was thrown over people was just so heavy that things like that couldn't be seen. And now look where we are. The idea of a cashless society doesn't seem so ridiculous, because still lurking at the back of some people's minds will be the idea that, well, I mean, I know we've stopped talking about it, but there was that time when cash was really dangerous, and it could be really dangerous again. So perhaps we do just get rid of it.
Actually, it was worse. It was worse here. It wasn't just cash that was dangerous. No, I'm not joking. You can look it up. We weren't allowed to buy cooked chicken, and by extension cooked food, because it had something to do with the heat of the warm food that would, I don't know what the mainstream theory was, but the virus would prefer warm food. Listen to this. We were banned from buying opened, what do you call it? Like open shoes, like sandals or whatever, right? Shoes so in other words, in the shops, they had these big sort of what do you call those tape crosses that they put over the shelves?
Yeah, you know hazard tape.
Yeah. Over open shoes. I went to go buy a pie. I think it was like in 2020 or something, right? It's like a chicken pie, and they said, sorry, it's we aren't allowed to sell anything hot. You have to go to the sandwich section to get something cold. We weren't allowed to buy tools from the hardware store, like a drill. They had some story around it. I promise you, this is what happened here. And people have forgotten, as if it didn't happen.
Yeah, people haven't forgotten. People have intentionally expunged it from their memories. It's not something that happened just in the course of time. People do not want to think about what happened in that time. And they don't really want to believe that that their politicians are quite as aggressive as they were.
What I wanted to say earlier, though, Charles, is I wanted to feed into what you're saying, that the importance of an event like the UK Econom event is the fact that if you think back to 2020, they were trying to tell us to be fearful of healthy people. They didn't want us to engage with people. They wanted us locked in our homes, and we must stand far away from people. So an event like this would have either been completely frowned upon or just not even allowed. And the physical interaction of people also breaks down that ridiculously sociopathic psychology that has become part of society, I think, because of social media, because of the fact that people are saying things that they would never say in person to one another. And the longer we stay away from physical interaction, I think the more dangerous it becomes.
Yeah. I mean, for my part, I absolutely could not agree more. And specifically with what you say about the, you simply wouldn't say that to my face thing. And it's not so much, in fact, not necessarily just the, to somebody else or about somebody else, but I think just the tossing of stuff out into the ether with no real consideration for what it is you're saying or what effect you're trying to create. And again, the whole thing has been further skewed, if that's the right word, by the particular social media platforms that any of this stuff's happening on, because of course content can be either amplified or suppressed. So it's sort of both ways. What people are putting out has become, in many respects, just completely ridiculous. But then so has what people are receiving, because they have the ability to be able to tailor what it is that you see. So people's picture of the world has, if that is what they are looking at, which unfortunately by and large people are, people's picture of the world has been completely distorted in a very, very short period of time. Okay, you might say that's always been the case, because by and large people have got their news from some of the newspapers that you mentioned earlier on, have been around for many years, or from mainstream television channels or whatever it is. But the point is, somebody has always had control over the news. But I think that is nothing as compared with what's happened on the social media platforms particularly in the last 6 years.
Something you said earlier, Mike, is that some of the audience have left thinking that, the COVID era was what UK column was all about, and kind of ignoring its entire history. But something like COVID will likely happen again in a different form. And we know that these things are like climate lockdowns, for example, and all the digital ID stuff that Catherine Fitz talks about. And these are all the things that are just iterations of the COVID era. People mustn't fall into the trap of thinking that happened and that's it, and now life continues. It's absolutely not the case that life just continues, which is why I sometimes get a little bit despondent when I hear about, people no longer supporting UK column, because UK column will continue to do the work it did pre-2020 and during 2020, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it to some degree, because people came, some people came for that topic and that topic only, and that particular topic is no longer perceived as being a threat, and so they drift away. That's absolutely normal, I think, and not anything to be surprised about. I think you're right. What was done at that time will be done again at some point, and probably not in too great a future, because as we've been talking about over the last few weeks, the state, at least the British state, and certainly other countries as well, is without question preparing for something. Now I'm starting to hear more and more people considering the possibility that there's going to be some kind of 9/11 style event in the not too distant future. It's not going to be the same, obviously, but it's something of a similar scale is what I'm talking about. What came out of that. In fact, one of the articles in the next edition of the magazine is on about this exactly. What came out of 9/11 and Patriot Act, and then the Information Awareness Office of John Poindexter, that sort of they overstepped with their marketing on that particular exercise, and so that was shut down. But it didn't disappear because it just continued, and then the programs that continued following that were exposed by Edward Snowden, and then we're up to, as we see a continuous progression of this surveillance agenda since that point. So the emergency event itself was 9/11. 9/11 came and went, and there were a couple of wars started around the place on the basis of it. But in the meantime, one particular agenda, which was the surveillance agenda, that got an initial boost from the 9/11 event itself. But that has progressed steadily over the last 25 years and hasn't gone away. And it's the same with COVID. The precedents that were set during COVID, where they were able to require lockdowns and so on, that precedent is now set. And the next emergency situation that comes along, whether that be some kind of war-related event or another so-called pandemic or whatever it happened, it doesn't really matter what the trigger is for it. The precedents are there now, and so that is coming. And as I say, when we look at the way that the ducks are being lined up for some kind of requirement for civil contingencies, emergency legislation, it's pretty clear that something's being planned. And of course, can't say when, but I don't think it's going to be too far in the future.
But the point that you're making is that being complacent is a bad idea. I mean, that's effectively
it's a very bad idea. It's a very bad idea. And if there's one running theme through the last 20 years of the UK column, it is that if people had acted on the information that was provided at the time, we wouldn't be in the position we're in at the moment. But we're back, every week almost, we're in that position, right? Some piece of news comes out, and it's people's reaction is, oh my goodness, but then there's no action taken. There's a reaction, emotional reaction, but no actual action taken to try to divert the direction of travel. And that, direction of travel is something that I keep banging on about. And because it's important, if we recognize the direction we're heading, I would argue that it's practically, if you're standing in the middle of the road and there's a juggernaut coming at you, you're not going to be able to put your hands up and stop it. But the question is whether there's any action you can take that can just shift it off course a little bit so that it doesn't hit you. Well, that might be better than doing nothing.
I sometimes feel like I'm a banshee because I'm constantly moaning about how people are not taking action, right? I'm always talking about the importance of solutions, and I'm often moan, as you know, about people simply not consuming solutions-oriented content and then doing something with that information. It's almost as though it's just easier to have a look at the drive-by shooting or the accident on the side of the road and go, oh, okay, that looks terrible, and then just keep going. Rather than actually doing something with that information. I'm a big fan of trying to do something with that information, and in the ways that I can personally improve my life based on that. I'll give you an example. I was over the weekend. A bunch of us got together. Farmer Angus and Nick Hudson, for example. We were all together, and Nick is now actively not bringing his cell phone with him to any kind of gathering. He left it, I think, in the car or even at home. He didn't even have it with him, which is a great thing. It's a personal solution, because he said, it'll beep, or I'll get a notification, or I want to have a quick look on Twitter or whatever. No longer. Now you're forced to engage with those around you. And that little personal maneuver, I think, is a great tactic to solve personal conflicts with the things that we talk about. I know for you, Charles, it's probably much easier, but for others, these are struggles. Disconnecting I'm constantly wired in my mind. Like I'm always thinking about everything, and ways to reduce that, like what Nick does, I think is a great idea. And it sounds so stupid because it's so obvious. But the irony is that it's not obvious, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I think that's the thing. I mean, it's great. It's lovely to hear that people have struck upon that. Usually because they've thought of it themselves. They've realised that this wretched device is beginning to control your life, or at least knock it quite seriously off course. But the trouble is that that so many people don't ever get to the point of realising that, and then we end up in the very dangerous territory of pointing it out to somebody and experiencing the backfire effect and all that goes with it, and so therefore the situation doesn't really change. But no, I mean, I'm applaud Nick for doing that. I became very aware of it. I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, whilst in a building project, because there are a couple of, I mean, probably more than a couple, but quite a lot of places in the United Kingdom where it's very easy to order stuff online for a next day delivery. And there's just nothing more annoying when you're building something. You just, the particular type of screw or nail or whatever it is, fiddly little thing that you need, you just run out of. And what I found was a pattern was picking up a telephone and thinking, well, I'll do it right away. I'll order it right now, thinking you're being so organised, only to find that 25 minutes later, you were still messing around on the thing and you'd actually forgotten what it was that you picked it up for, because the moment you open the screen, about 25 things jump in your face, and that's what you start looking at rather than the one thing that you're meant to do. And so as a very deliberate reaction against that sort of thing, I made a conscious effort to stop, but basically sort of stop using it. And absolutely, I would certainly never take a telephone anywhere that I absolutely didn't have to. But yes, I mean, one can only hope that people do realise it. I mean, ironically, all this nonsense about the banning of social media for 16-year-old, for people under 16 and that kind of thing, I think that at least has allowed a kind of lead in it conversationally to this topic, because of course it's nothing to do with children and it's nothing to do with social media platforms. It's all to do with other things, mostly related to data and digital identity. But at least it provides a way to be able to talk about it, because everybody really at some level is concerned with what happens to young people, what they're exposed to and what expectations there are for their lives as compared with ours. And the easiest possible one is that anyone of our age group or above never experienced any of this stuff as a child. And therefore, if we all survived, well, stands to reason that younger people should be able to as well. But I think, as I say, the main point is that people have to come to this realization on their own. Now, whether we can help with that, I don't know.
Well, one of the things, Jerm, that we insisted as our kids were growing up, they're adults now, but two things we insisted: that we have an evening meal together as a family on most days. Like, obviously, we weren't ever going to stop them doing some kind of social event or whatever, but we all got together in the evening, and there were no phones at the table and no phones in the room. In fact, actually, my kids didn't have mobile phones. I didn't insist on this. This was their decision until they were 17 or something like that, or 18. I can't remember what age they got them at. They weren't interested, but even those were two things that we thought were important, and no distractions. So we actually had conversations at the dinner table, which I'm not sure how many people do that anymore. That in itself is resisting.
Well, it's funny you say that, because some of the conversations that we have are about UK column. So did you see that story? And so UK column acts as the instigator of the conversation, which is great. By the way,
sometimes, as long as it doesn't take over.
Of course. By the way, when I said that Farm Angus and Nick and I were together over the weekend, Charles, take a look at this. I hope this picture will show on the screen. I just want to quickly show you, if I can just get it to... There it is. Oops, there it is. So...
that was very quick for me.
Hang on. Let me press it again. There it is. Okay. Those are burger patties that Angus made specifically for our social on Saturday. Look at those patties. All of that white there, it's fat that he put into the patties. And he used his own beef. So that is regenerative, grass-fed, free-range beef with inserted fat, and then he put a crust of pepper around the outside. Probably the best burgers I've ever had. I'm trying to just to make you jealous.
They do look very good, I must say. Well done him. Well done you. Fantastic.
And of course, Angus doesn't pretty much carry a phone with him either. But he's a farmer, so that's different. He's very connected. He's very connected to the soil. That's what I mean.
Yeah, but I mean that makes him extremely unusual. Certainly in the United Kingdom. Okay, I mean, again, for the avoidance of doubt, I am of course speaking generally, but in actual fact, the way that farming technology has gone now, farmers are not really connected to the soil. Their machinery might be in some way, but even their machinery, with air-conditioned cabs for tractors and sort of radios blaring and whatnot, and the fact that a lot of what's conducted now is done by contractors who aren't necessarily anything to do with the land that they're working on. It's a totally different setup, and it's all well, not it is all, but so much of it, of course, is run semi-remotely because you have the automation of being able to deliver specific inputs into the ground according to surveys conducted by satellites and that kind of thing. So it's the mobile telephone and all the tech goes with it is in fact quite a fundamental part of farming for a lot of people, which seems completely wrong to me.
But I mean, look, at the risk of sounding like a fuddy-duddy, we also are progressing. And one of the things that I sometimes wonder out loud is whether or not we are being Luddites. Like if we're deliberately trying to resist what is obviously progress in some instances. Not everything's progress, I'll admit.
Well, I mean, are you saying that with the inference that the Luddites were wrong?
No, obviously not. But what I mean is, if you can, for example, if you can give, I'm
not. I don't mean to trip you up. Sorry. To
no.
But
no, Luddites are not necessarily wrong.
Yeah, well, I think that's what it is, and I think also, I loathe the word progress because I feel Mike, I know is bored of this, but I feel it is, it is misused, completely misused, or at least the connotations that we're supposed to have is that it is change that is good, and that those two things just don't go together. I mean, look at what we've just been talking about with the replacement for cash or the replacement for books. I mean, they are not good. They are described as being progress, but they are not good. I think
no. What I mean, Charles.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, let me jump in. So obviously, so I'm in agreement with you. I think that progress is largely a myth. I think everything changes and yet stays the same. But there are ways to improve things, like building a house on a hill. To use spades is very slow and tedious. If you can use a bulldozer, you can obviously get through that hill a lot quicker and more effectively. In that respect, obviously progress is a good thing.
No,
unless you want to spend a year longer.
No,
not
because
obvious.
no, because and this is where one does have to be obstinate and pedantic with this. Just think of the advent of, let's say, the bulldozer, because straight away what you're doing is you are absolutely fundamentally changing an economy of all the people, all the men that were involved with road building suddenly either lose their jobs or they get pushed into doing something different, or so the level of change that is represented by any of these technological advancements is enormous. And just because we live in a period of time where we aren't really seeing the effect of that because it's all, to an extent, it's all happened, means that we can't fully appreciate it. So I'm not saying that if I were to do such a thing, that as a point of principle, I would try and drum up, a team of 50 labourers and do it by hand just because it means not using a bulldozer. That's not what I mean, because I accept absolutely that we are where we are. And yes, therefore, you want to do something in the most effective and efficient way. But the point is that every single one of those developments has, at a time, had that moment of, right, well, yes, we could use the different thing, the new thing, but what is the effect of doing that going to be? And this is the thing that I think is so often not considered, certainly not looking forward, but I mean, even in hindsight, we tend not to think about the terrific ramifications of any of these changes. And the thing is that you can do it and you can still get to a point that is generally good, but it requires thought, it requires consideration, it requires a different plan. And that is what is so often lacking. I think it's a really common feature of the modern age that these absolutely seismic differences or introductions of new technologies, and I mean technology in the broadest terms, there is no consideration given to the effect that will have, and therefore there's no planning around it either. And that is, you have to think, well, if it happens time and time and time again, it is deliberate, it is deliberately disruptive, and that is therefore not a good thing. So no, I don't take it as read that just because something is in a way the most straightforward and the most effective way, that it is necessarily the best way of doing it. It's totally sort of case by case.
I think there is consideration given. It's just the wrong consideration.
Well,
I think every progress, every step along the way has been about removing expensive human labor and replacing it with cheap mechanical or electronic or whatever it happens to be. And now we're getting to the point of replacing all human labor with robotics and artificial intelligence. And so what is the future of humanity under those circumstances? If there had been any evidence historically of the removal of people from manual labor jobs, and that all those people turned into, some kind of productive, how to put this? If they suddenly went into, cerebral disciplines instead, and they were contributing to the future knowledge of humanity, or to music or to art or something like that, then perhaps. But most people, when they are made redundant by the technology, end up doing things, well, in the modern sense, like sitting in front of the sofa and watching Netflix. They don't find some other way to contribute. And so I'm afraid I, to some degree, agree with what Charles just said. And I don't think progress is progress.
Yeah, sure.
It's progress for some who want to maximize profits in a corporate sense, that's the consideration that's given. And I suppose this is what Charles meant. There's zero consideration given to what the people that are made redundant are actually going to do. And it's really up to them. And the obvious thing for them to do is to find some form of entertainment to pass the time.
Sorry, go on, Charles.
Just the other element of it, which I think is extremely important, is that in introducing a new system, so invent something, of course, what they get with that is control, because they then have the monopoly on how it is that you do such and such a thing. So if you are the bloke that builds or owns the bulldozer company, you effectively have control over that. And therefore what's been lost is the skills and the knowledge and the experience of all those people that were previously involved in doing that. So you've taken away the sovereignty, let's say, for want of a better word, of a large chunk of society. They may no longer be able to do that themselves, and it'll only take a generation before nobody knows how to do it anymore. And so in order to do it, there is only one way, and that is not, when I say it's not your way, it's not your way because you're not in control of it. You haven't built the bulldozer yourself. You've got to go to so-and-so and either buy it or hire it or whatever. Okay, mostly that is achievable now, but not necessarily. I mean, look at some pieces of modern agricultural machinery are phenomenally expensive in a way that makes certain activities either prohibitive or that in order to do it, you've got to enter into some sort of finance scheme that means that you're going to be conditioned to do it in a particular way, blah, 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 for ad infinitum. And those are the sorts of things as well. So this is my problem with it, it's the loss of control, the loss of freedom in a sense, because you can no longer, as a small society, you can't do the sorts of things that people absolutely were able to do in the past.
And not just that, as you know, over the past few months, the damn bulldozers here keep breaking my fiber.
Well, yeah.
All right. I want to quickly come in for landing. I'm looking at the time. So I wanted to chat about UK Column event. It is on the weekend of the 17th of September. Is that right?
No.
18th, 19th, 20th.
18th. I beg your pardon. So 17th is
Friday
Friday.
the 18th to Sunday the 20th. Yeah.
Oh, is Friday the 18th? Okay, I beg your pardon.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So yes, no, I mean, we are really looking forward to seeing those of you that have got your tickets, and we are really hoping that those of you who haven't but are about to get your ticket will find that there is one left for you, because it is actually going to be sensational. And I think exactly these sorts of things are such great talking points, sort of in-person events, and there's a huge amount of joy coming down the track. So please do be there.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you for watching to the end of this video. If you got value from it, consider joining as a channel member, which directly supports what we do here. The link is right below. And if you're hungry for more, here are 2 more videos for you, and we'll see you in the next one.